Good afternoon, everybody. That was a good response. Thank you. It's good to see everybody, literally. It's good to see everybody. I'm glad to see my fellow vendors. I'm glad to see my fellow competition. I'm glad to see a whole bunch of old friends that I've worked with in the past and I've worked for in the past. So it is really good to see everybody, and we're going to have a conversation today about the single most important topic that is gripping America by storm: grout. Think about it. You can do the most phenomenal job putting in the tile. You make brilliant decisions flattening the floor out, making the accurate cuts, the great layout. Everything is phenomenal, and then it comes to the grout. And they're like, well, I don't understand. I don't like this. I don't know what's going on. Well, it didn't look like that in the sample. Well, let's talk about a couple of problems that are inherently going on right now with grout. First things first is, tiles are getting bigger or smaller? They're getting gigantic. I just showed my wife some tiles over there via Facebook. I shouldn't have done that because now, or FaceTime, now she's going to want me to put them in the bathroom. But they were like 3 foot by 16 foot. Here's the problem. The grout joint that they're going to want with that tile is a 1/16 of an inch, maybe smaller. And then as an ex-installer and somebody who did this for a living, how do we grout a floor? Let's just say we have a 3 foot by 3 foot piece of tile that has a 1/16 inch grout joint. I'm going to mix up cement grout, and then I'm going to take the grout and do what with it? I'm going to smear it all across this whole entire floor so I can fill a grout joint this big. Right? How does that make sense? How does that make sense? I'm going to take a 3 foot by 3 foot piece of tile that has a 1/16 inch grout joint, and I'm going to spread 9 square feet of grout on top of the tile that I have to clean. Because as men, we're exceptional cleaners anyways. So I have to clean that off. And what do I clean it off with? Anybody? Water. Okay? And water does what to grout when you get too much of it in there? Makes the color better or makes the color worse? Okay, so why are we making these decisions? Maybe it's time to start thinking about a different way to grout tile this big and grout joints this big. And so there's a couple of options for that. That's what we're going to talk about here today. So before we get started, I want to introduce, since the #1 demo team in the country, and since it's in the country, I'm saying maybe like in the top 10 in the world, and since what's in the world, that makes it in the universe, because I haven't seen any competition outside of Earth. So I've got Scott, Dario, and Tony. Okay, woo, give them a hand. 2 salesmen and a tech rep. Doesn't get much better than that right there. But it's important, it's very, very important that everybody within our own company understands how to go ahead and use grout the proper way. Listen, you want to solve, we didn't have these problems 30 years ago. No, we did not. We had tile this big and we had grout joints that big. Okay, so I'm putting that much water down to clean a grout joint that fat. I'm not putting this much water down to clean a grout joint that fat. Enough with the water, enough with spreading all over top of the tile, wasting people's grout. Figure out another way of doing it that you're going to have to get fast at. I get it. I've been doing it this way for 30 years. 30 years ago, I had platform shoes on and bell-bottom pants. Right now, that would not be a good look if I had that outfit on. So let's not go back to 30 years ago. Let's stay current. And let's figure these things out. I have a ready-to-use grout, Flex Color CQ. What I mean by that is this: no pigments inside of there. I have a rapid setting grout, #1 selling grout in the world, therefore it's the #1 selling grout in the universe. We lead all sales in grout on Mars with that grout right there, because if we're #1 in the world, we are absolutely #1 selling in the universe. And I say that jokingly, but I say that honestly. #1 selling grout in the world. Why? Because it uses a fine aggregate, a really tiny fine aggregate. What I mean by that is a small grain of sand can fit into a 1/16 inch grout joint all the way up to a 3/4 inch grout joint, if you choose to put a 3/4 inch grout joint in, which we think would be really good for us if you did that. but no, customers not so much. But you can go from a 1/16 to 3/4 of an inch, almost, I'm not saying completely, but almost eliminating the need for sanded, unsanded. Almost. We're not quite there yet, but we're approaching that mark. Spread's really easy. The color is true. By the way, all of my products come in 4 languages: English, Spanish, French, and man pictures. And that, if you look at the man pictures, it'll tell you how to mix the product properly. When it comes to grout, you're dealing with color. The proper mix is absolutely key. It's like baking a cake. If you put too much egg or too much milk in the cake, it's not going to come out the same way. Not only are you counting on a consistency with when you mix it with water, but you're also counting on the color. Please make sure you measure that water. As guys, I know we're not doing that. You need to figure out, again, a way to bring a measuring pitcher with you. Measure the water with grout. You have to if you're going to maintain that color. This is Flex Color CQ, ready to use. I open the bucket up. This grout for the first time now in my grouting life, I'm not on the clock. And what I mean by that is, when I mix up a cement grout or I mix up an epoxy grout, that in my head, I'm going, I gotta get it out of the bucket, I gotta get it on the floor, and I gotta get it cleaned before this locks up and gets away from me. I don't have control of that. I lose control of that whole thing the second I put A and B together, or the second I put water in the cement and I stir it and mix it up. With this, I control that. I open the lid, I scoop some out, I spread a 2-foot by 10-foot section, I close the lid, I go back and clean it. Oh, I get a phone call. I talk on the phone. I come back, I hang the phone up, I open the lid up, I spread 10 more feet, I go back and clean it. I come around, I go back and clean it. I'm controlling that. If it gets away from me, there's nobody's fault but mine. That means I got greedy and spread too much and couldn't clean it in enough time. You got about 5 minutes. So on a hot day, you're gonna be able to get less before it starts to get away from you than on a cold day. But the reality is, it takes the same amount of time. I'm still going to close the lid and I'm going to clean it. Guys, you have to change the water. We're going to talk water to acrylic or epoxy ratio. I start with a fresh bucket of water. I take the sponge, I put it in the water. I go ahead and I start cleaning it. I rinse the sponge out into the bucket. Now I'm putting acrylic or epoxy back into that bucket, depending upon what I'm cleaning with. I put the sponge back in there. I'm pulling some of the acrylic, the stuff I'm trying to clean, I'm putting it back onto the floor. And at some point, I'm going to put too much of the acrylic or the epoxy back onto the floor that I can't clean it no more. Now I'm smearing it around. Now we're just waving it all over the place and making a mess of it. So he asked a great question, how often? About every 20 to 30 feet is about how often I clean the water. So I might go and get 4 or 5 buckets, fill them halfway up with water, and every 30 feet set them onto the job. And when I get there, I just take the bucket I have and slide it back and grab this one and continue forward. Because of this, I can close the lid and go rinse the buckets out and start all over again. And that way I only have to come through once and clean that floor. With this product right here, it's a rapid drying product. I clean it once, it'll develop a little bit of haze on the surface. Don't put water back on that haze. Just take a dry towel and buff it off. I have a friend does commercial jobs. He cleans the floor initially, gets it cleaned white, gets the joints dressed, and then he leaves the haze on the floor for a day or two, and it keeps other trades off the floor. They're afraid to walk on the floor because they think something's wrong with it. Comes back with a buffer and just buffs the thing off the floor, and he's got a nice clean floor that's been cured. He bought time enough to cure it. So these are 2 different options when it comes to grout. What Scott has here, this is a black grout. Now, if you look at the grout joints, you're going to see it kind of has like a milky color to it. It's acrylic. The nature of the product is it's acrylic with a color-coded quartz inside of there. When you add water to an acrylic, it gets like a milky white. You ever pour wood finish? It comes out white out of the jug and dries crystal clear. When the water evaporates and goes away, it dries crystal clear. Here's what's happening with this product. Because there's no pigment inside of there, you can't wash the flavor or you can't wash the color out of that. So you take that product, you put it down. If I took a bunch of blue marbles and put it in a fish tank and filled the fish tank up with water, the water would look blue. The water's not blue, the water's clear. I'm looking through the clear and seeing the blue. That's what you're seeing here. You're looking through the clear and you're going to see the black. I can't wash that color out. I don't want to say it's foolproof, because never underestimate the ability of people to rise to the occasion and mess things up, but it's getting there. It's pretty darn close. And it's going to definitely be the color. Number one complaint we get about grout from customers, it's not the color that they anticipated or wanted, especially in the beginning. If it doesn't start off the color, it's never going to get there. It should at least start off the color. This product right here, awesome product, really cool, comes in all of 40 colors, it comes in a bucket. I open it up, what I don't use, I close the bucket and I take it to the next job, or I leave it with the homeowner. They can touch up their floor. It'll allow you to touch up. For how long? For a year and a half it'll stay in the bucket. Yeah, 18 months it'll stay in the bucket. So this is a great alternative. This, number one selling grout in the world, remember? Ultra Color Plus FA. FA stands for fine aggregate. Swimming pools, fountains, jacuzzis. Alaska, Mexico, New York, Florida, Texas, Arizona, California, Pennsylvania. I don't care where. I don't have a northern grout and a southern grout. I make grout that has to work in the north and the south. In Canada, works in cold climates, works in hot climates, works everywhere. Everywhere. Submerged environments, everywhere. That's why it's the number one selling grout. That product right there. Comes in all 40 colors. Now, remember the Flex Color CQ, the clear acrylic with a color-coded quartz. I'm going to introduce you to its cousin. This is Flex Color 3D. Specifically, I have a hard time saying that word, so I'm very proud of myself right now. I'm not going to attempt it again. That word, it's designed for glass tile. And the reason for that is that light hits regular tile and just kind of dies on the surface, doesn't do anything. But light hits glass and penetrates through it. And if I have a tinted acrylic with a clear glass bead, which is what this product is, and it comes in 10 shades, if I have a tinted acrylic with a clear glass bead in it, it allows the light to pass through the glass, through the grout, and into the next piece of glass, making the grout the color that it should be, which is always, it's going to be right. So here, let me give you an example. You see that dark color blue right there? Watch what color the grout turns out. So it's blue right there, but look right here above it, it's green. So now the grout is green. It changes colors because it's taking the color from the glass and transferring it across. It's refracting, it's a technical term. Kind of proud of myself that I learned that the other day. Saw it on Wikipedia. It's passing right on through. It is all one color, but the light from the glass, when light hits it, alters it ever so slightly, so it'll always match. It looks like it's all one color on here, and it is, but it's allowing the light to pass through and highlighting the piece of tile next to it. The reason people put glass tile on their floors and their walls is they want bling. They want bling, they want jewels, they want their neighbors, their kids, they want their friends coming in and going, oh my gosh, look, I want that. Look at it. Look at it. And it does look spectacular. If they wanted subdued, they would put tumbled marble on the wall. They don't want subdued. They want bling. And make sure the grout is taking care of the bling. Make sure it's helping it. Some of these other shades have an iridescent effect or a little glitter inside of there that even makes it sparkle a little bit more. Very decorator friendly, really cool product. Where can I use this? No submerged environments. No submerged environments. So no fountains, swimming pools, or jacuzzis. Fountains, swimming pools, and jacuzzis. Okay? We're good? One last thing. MAPEI came out with a heat mat system. We have several of them. So we have a heat membrane, a heat mat, and a heat mesh. Of course, it's called MAPEI. So it's a MAPEI heat, MAPEI mat, MAPEI mesh. With that, and the rain, with that, the wire goes in between. This is the membrane. The wire goes in between these columns, these for lack of whatever you call them, and depending upon how far apart you put the wire, every 2 rows is the closest you can get them, will determine how much heat is generated per square foot. In a 2 by 2 by 2 section, I can generate enough heat that it would heat the room. So I live in Florida. This is probably not something I'm very concerned about. But there are people live in other places like New York, Wisconsin, like places where it does get cold, and you want to make sure that you can have, your floor is nice and heated. We also make 3 options when it comes to the thermostat. So we make a on-off thermostat. I set it to 78 and I turn it on. We make a thermostat you can program, and we make a thermostat you can program and turn it on and off from your phone. So we have 3 options on the thermostat. And then the other thing is we make a mat. And if you go on our website, you can take measurements of the room and input it into our website. We will manufacture the mat for that room. It'll be in that shape. It'll come in a box. You just spread mortar on the floor, roll the mat out, and get the electrician. They'll hook it up, and you're good to go. No cutting or nothing. So they'll be customizable to the shape of your room in this mat system. So I just wanted to show you that. These are some of the things we've been working on while we've all been at home, hoping the ceiling doesn't leak. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
If you get stained, can you stain the, let's say you drop something on the floor.
Can I stain this? So you asked a good question. Can you stain this? Well, so I'm going to answer this honestly. Everything, if you really tried, could be stained. But you'd have to go out of your way to stain that. If it's a cement-based product, because it has pores, there's a chance of staining it. And since we're on the subject, let's talk about staining. There's 2 ways you're going to stain something. Either integrally, where it's going to go down into the pores, or on the surface. If it's on the surface, you can clean it off, right? So if it's in the pores, that's a different story. So sometimes in an area where there is a good chance of staining, you might want to think about sealing it with some sort of sealer, water-based sealer or a chemical-based sealer. This, not necessary. I don't count on hydration for that. I don't develop pores in there. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, good to see everybody. Everybody go out and make a lot of money this year. Work hard. If you're an installer, be proud. Put your name on every floor you put in. Let them know who you are. When somebody's tearing that floor up 10 years from now, make them sweat. And when they finally get there and see your name, make them curse it. I appreciate everything you guys do. If you're currently using MAPEI products, thank you. If you're not, you should probably stop by and give us a chance. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Thank you for your time. I know how valuable it is. Everybody have a good, healthy, successful 2021. See you in Vegas on 2022.